Hello. Thanks for coming with us.
Hello.
I am Will Leitch, the least interesting person on this panel. Welcome to the Napoleon Dynamite 16 years and 8 months anniversary show.
Yeah.
I am that's correct. I think I got that time on that right.
Everybody hit the raise hand on Zoom. Woo!
Exactly.
Right?
The roof is being raised.
But it's all digital raise hand, whatever.
I am delighted to have with us, of course, in no particular order other than in my heart. We have, of course, John Heder. Yay! In a perfect world, we would all be applauding you, but instead it will just have to be us. We'll all raise accordingly. We, of course, have Efren Ramirez. Hello. Good to see you. So looking dapper. Oh, it's the escape room Zoom that we're doing here.
Look at his goggles.
We have John Gries. John Gries, excuse me. John Gries.
Oh my God. We even talked about that.
I know,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
John Gries. Senor John Gries. Yes.
John Gries. John Gries like guys.
Gries to you, love.
Yes.
We got John Greaseball.
John Greaseball. John Gries is the right.
That's what I used to throw a grease ball.
So I am delighted to do two things. One, to kind of introduce you guys to get you going. And two, to stay out of your way and let you all just do all the things that you do in your ordinary conversation.
Well, who asked the questions then?
I'm going to probably ask one question, and then you guys are just going to go. If my interaction with you so far can be trusted, I think.
But will you ask the question in Spanish or in English?
That is not a hard question. I think we know the answer to that question. I'm going to be lucky to be able to figure out English, to be entirely honest with you. So it's been 16 years. To me, I obviously, like everybody watching, I'm a huge fan of the film. And to me, though, I remember when it came out, it was such a surprise. It seemed to be one of the things. I think the appeal of it was it seemed to be almost like a found object. It existed somewhere out of the ether. But and John, I'll let you start because you were the first one in the process. This was something that you and Jared Hess, the director, you guys went to college together, correct? And is this something you guys had started brewing up?
That is mostly correct. Yes. We were, there was a small handful of us who were were students together at BYU in Utah. And that's I didn't know him before, but we were in some of the same classes. Aaron Rule, who plays Kip, he was one of the few others. And then most of the crew were students from school. So when we made the film, it was actually already almost in pre-production 2 years earlier, because we made the short film, which the feature was based on. And at that point, it was just Jared and I and his wife and one other, 3 other crew. And then when we ramped up for the feature, that's when they got a casting director, and they reached out and they started getting sweet people like Efren and John Greaseball, Gries.
So they're wonderful. I can't figure who's where. So even what was the first you'd heard of the project? They'd come to you. What were you doing at the time in your life before this came into your world?
I was just was that question to me or John?
No, it was Efren.
It's Efren.
Telepathically, I was actually sending the messages to Heder.
Right.
Yeah, and he was doing such a great job. And I was great. I could just mime the entire thing. But I guess I have to take the difficult task to answer this question. Well, I was riding my mule through the Grand Canyon or something. And then a director came up to me and said, "Do you want to be in a documentary?" I'm kidding.
No, really?
He almost had me.
I was working on a series called Even Stevens with on Disney. And then my agent had called me, and they told me that you have 2 auditions for 2 films. One was Napoleon Dynamite, and the other one was The Alamo. And so and I saw Napoleon Dynamite, and I read the sides, which are pages of the script, and it was something I had never. It was just so different from the norm of what I was getting, of what I had ever seen, and I was still young in acting and studying and going to school. So
you were playing a lot of cops and a lot of politicians and stuff.
Typecast.
Yeah, Juan number 2, so
hunky jock.
I was
hunky jock who
So
Beds every girl.
Yeah, the jock, exactly.
You know how it is. You know, I'm not this more biff. So, but then when that role came, even in the feature film, I don't know if I had gotten the script yet. Just the scenes alone, and I, you do your work, you audition, and after the audition, I got a call back, and I had to go to Fox Studios. Going to Fox Studios, spending time with everyone. You trust the director and you trust the producers, and they like what I did, and I got the role as Pedro, and then it became such a wonderful marriage, and I to this day I'm just grateful that I'm a part of it. So yeah.
Also what's amazing about how weirdly serendipitous that they cast you out. They used an office at Fox, but this was not a Fox movie until Fox bought it at Sundance when the movie was done. But lo and behold, you walked onto the Fox lot. It was almost like it was meant to be, right? That it was a Fox, they just borrowed an office there.
Right.
Yeah.
So how'd this get in for you, Mr. Gries?
I was I had quit. I had quit acting. I truly
you were done.
I did 4 years on a show called The Pretender, and I was really going to make a run for writing and directing, and I had a few things that I was writing, and I just called my agent and said, I'm done. And she was like, okay, I get it. And then I
But there's one last thing, just before you quit, here you go.
Then he get retired. One last heist. Last heist.
No, that was almost like that. Jory Weitz was casting this film called The Big Empty with Jon Favreau and Kelsey Grammer and Daryl Hannah. And apparently an actor had fallen out. And he called me and he was like, I couldn't find you. You're not with anybody. How did, he called me at home. And he said, we lost an actor. Would you come out and play the role? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I drove out to Baker, California, and did this movie, The Big Empty, which was really kind of a funny, sweet little film. And then that's the office that they were cutting the movie in at Fox. They were using an office to cut it. And Jory then went and started working for Napoleon Dynamite. And so when they couldn't figure out who to play Uncle Rico, they made some offers to some named people that didn't even read it, stupidly. And then he said, hey, look, there's some footage of the guy in this movie, The Big Empty. I think you should watch it. And they watched it, and then they said, let's make an offer. So then that was kind of, all of a sudden I was back in business.
So when you were making it, at the time, while you're filming, while you're in the process, are you thinking, okay, this is going to be like this is going to blow people's minds when they see this? Or was it more like, yeah, this is good. I'm sure it will get tucked in a closet somewhere, but we'll all get to say we had this experience. Did you know it was going to be big when you? Yeah,
I did. I had an immediate. There was something incredible. The first scene I saw being filmed was Kip and LaFonda playing footsie. That's what I arrived to. And I was so blown away by that scene that I called a friend of mine, and I knew that the script was, immediately when they sent me the script, because I didn't audition, they just sent me the script, and I was lucky enough to just be offered this amazing film. And my manager at the time, I had a guy who decided to kind of link on and help me. And he was like, you don't want to do this. This is, who are these guys? And of course, I said, let me read it. And I was laughing out loud. And I called him back by page 15. I said, you tell him I'll do it. I'll be there. I'll do it. And then when I got there, it lived up to every bit of how it read, because the script is impeccable. It's a beautifully written script by Jared and Jerusha Hess. And so what was I saying? What were we talking about? What was the question?
Just
the question like, did you know this was going to be huge?
Oh yeah, no. I called a friend of mine who actually, two friends. One who worked at Paramount, had a classics division, and I called her, and I called another friend of mine who was at MGM, and I said, I think I'm working on a film that you guys are going to want to get. And the girl from MGM kind of forwarded me over to somebody at UA, and the person at UA never answered, never returned my call. And then I wrote her a long email, and that like 2 days later, and never heard back from her. And the woman at Paramount had just been fired. So everything was it just was kind of amazing.
Serendipitous.
And it worked out. It worked out. And in fact, both of those women were at Sundance bidding on the movie, texting me over and over and over saying, we want to get in the room with them. We want to get in the room with them. And Fox Searchlight basically had absconded with the filmmakers, with the producer and filmmaker, Jared, and said, this is where the offer comes, and this is where the offer lies. If you walk out the door, the offer's off the table. So nobody could get through. None of us could get through. Remember, we were all kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to see.
We had no idea.
We had no idea, but and they kept texting me. These same two people were going, how do you get me in? How did they? I was like, beep, you had your chance. Too bad,
Now, John, you obviously you knew Jared, you worked Jared, but like this, I can't imagine, John Heder, I can't imagine what it was like to experience, to like this really be your first experience with like a big movie like this, like to suddenly go from this is this guy that I know from college and we're all doing this together to getting wait, we're at Sundance and people are bidding hugely for this. And then you being right at the center of it. What was that explosion from 0 to 1,000 like in the moment?
I mean, there was a little bit of a ramp up, only because, I was going to school in Utah. I've been to Sundance like either once or twice before, just as a film student to go see some movies. So I got a little bit of the feel of what it was like. The short film that we based it on was at Slam Dance, I think 2 years earlier, which is, the kind of small redheaded stepchild version of
Slam Dance.
The of Sundance. So, but again, having kind of been ready somewhat, but yeah, no, absolutely. This was my first feature acting gig ever.
You were like Jan Michael Vincent of the millennium.
Yeah. No, it was like
he just like walked into a movie and like
hey, I'm an actor now.
Star. Well, but when we made that movie, it didn't feel like a giant studio movie. It was just like a glorified student project that we were working on. It was like, oh, hey, Kevin, how's it going? Jared, like I knew all the guys, were all in class. So it felt like just doing homework kind of in a way, but we all loved it and we were all in it. And it was more like a bunch of college guys with a couple of these really cool actors, John and Efren and Tina and Deidre.
But you remember, I mean, like for us, for Efren and I, when we got there, it was exactly that. We never felt like we're on a movie. We felt like, like it was like really communal. And
no, it's just like we all, you guys came in and immediately were the characters and we're family and we're like, we're all on the same page. We were all on the same page. And so when we finally got to Sundance, that was a whirlwind. That was crazy. Like you gave a little bit of a feel for it, but between the bidding wars that was happening behind closed doors, there was just like, I mean, every agent and manager and agency, was just coming to me and trying to, setting up meetings and wining and dining and just like, we want you. And I was like, oh, I just want some free sushi. Sweet. Okay. But
we were the belle of the ball. I mean, that was the amazing thing. Like there's all these heavyweight people and a lot of them in crappy movies, but they're there to push them. Like, and they were waiting in line to get into our movie. Like Faye Dunaway was out there in the line, it was like
the premiere of the film, which was the very first screening of the film they had there at the Eccles Theater, was one of the most incredible moments of my, obviously right up there. Cause it was just, we were cloud nine. We like, at that point we could do no wrong. I mean, everybody was laughing at every single joke, every single pause, every weird thing. And then kind of when the dance scene happened, because I remember Jared, was saying like so much of this rides on the dancing because that's kind of the climax. And if the audience isn't on board till then the dance isn't going to work. You know what I mean? So, because then they have to believe in the character, you have to be there. We heard so much laughter, so I didn't feel too worried, but it was like, well, it could really suck. And they're just like, oh, that was awkward, but everybody was really into it. And we were just like, well, we did it. Our dreams came true. people saw what we saw, what this film could be.
And to that, I do gotta say, like, you know, we worked on this independent film, and because when you're working on independent film, you become like an immediate family, and it becomes just much more about, let's do this project and let's see what happens. And but when we got accepted at the Sundance Film Festival, like, I didn't even know what that meant, and I was like, okay. And I remember having to, you know, meet the gang again, and there we are in Park City, Utah, and we had like some original T-shirts, the original Napoleon Dynamite poster when you had John Heder as Napoleon in the middle of the on a couch, right in the middle of the couch in just one room, and we were trying to pass out buttons, the ones that said "Vote for Summer" and then "Vote for Pedro," and we're trying to, our very first days, we're trying to just promote, like, hey, this is who we are, and people were going, "Vote for Pedro? What is this? What is this?" And I go, "Well, what election is this?" But it was just us really trying to get our voice out, and hope that maybe we'll get some kind of reaction. And when,
but also remember, like, once the buzz hit about the movie, because all of a sudden it just like was a ripple effect through all of Sundance. Those buttons were like gold. They were like gold coins all of a sudden. It was like, did you get one of these Pedro buttons, man? You know, like,
I don't want that summer trash. Don't give me the summer ones. Give me the Pedro. Whoa, who's calling?
Sorry.
I'm on airplane. Ain't me.
Huh?
My agent. All right. Okay.
Yeah, it was incredible.
My age.
And we had only up to go because we had nothing to lose. If we were like, you know, we could get out there and push these buttons and these posters and really try to push this film. And if nobody saw it, then we just go back. I mean, at least for me, I was like, yeah, I'll go back to being a college student and just continue on.
I also have a little story about Sundance. When Jeremy Kuhn, who was actually, he got his brother to finance the movie to a tune of like $360,000, you know. He was also the editor of the film, did an amazing job editing the movie, and he was the executive producer and a student, a fellow student from BYU.
Yeah.
You know, basically, he was in an apartment here in Westwood in Los Angeles, and he had nobody to hang with. And he would call me, and I had free time, and I would go to the editing room, and we'd sit in the editing room, like, you know, I'd go like 3 days a week, because he just wanted to bounce it off something. Because Jared Hess would go back to Salt Lake City and then come back and then go back. He'd give notes and then go away for a week and then come back, and then, you know, because he was writing other projects and getting busy. And so what happened was we got the offer to be the premiere of Slam Dance. And they called me to tell me, you know, Jared had come into town, and he said, guess what? We got offered the premiere of Slam Dance. And I said, don't do it. Don't do it. And he was like, dude, if they gave me 24 hours to answer. And I said, don't do it. Because I knew in my gut we were going to get into Sundance. I had no inside knowledge. I just knew the film was so good. And they were like, if we lose this, then we're out of luck, you know. And I said, we're gonna get into Sundance. You have to go with that. You just have to go with it. And I remember Jared Hess was on the phone with me. The three of us were on the phone together, and Jared Hess just said, all right, we're turning it down. And then the call from Sundance came literally the following day, and it was like, yes. It was such a cool, the whole thing felt so like kismet. The whole experience all the way through.
One of the remarkable things for me, and just having talked to you guys before this and obviously watching you now, you know, you three did not know each other before you went to make this movie. You've all met on the set of this movie, and now you guys not only will be associated with each other forever. You guys clearly get along. Like, you clearly have done this a lot. Did you become fast friends on the set? Was it just something as the years have gone along and you've been all associated with it? Or do you actually just secretly hate each other and just have to kind of pretend? It's like a Galaxy Quest, where you guys like seriously like deep down hate each other and are all pretending.
Well, anything we give now is just going to be acting, right?
Right, exactly.
I think it was just, I think, from the get-go, we liked each other.
Yeah.
It was just because we had this mutual project that we were all in love with, and that helps a lot, and we're all seemingly nice guys, and but and it's not just the three of us. Everybody got along, but I think having such a wonderful film like this to kind of bond us. I mean, that's a really special thing. There's other movies I've done with other actors that we just don't have that kind of relationship. One, because we don't have anniversary shows, or we didn't do a cartoon version. I think was the magic is not only did we do the animated series, and that brought us back after a while, but now having done a lot of these anniversary special screenings and Q&As, we've been on the road a lot, and now we're like travel buddies. And
10 hours on the road together in a car.
We're drawing straws. Who's going to sit in the front? Who's going to sit in the back with Efren? Okay. Oh, we got to listen to his nocturnal rampage. No.
but I do want to say is that even as we travel together, kind of like Easy Rider, throughout the entire time from making the movie till now, not only is the story impeccable when it comes to friendship, getting along, accepting our similarities and differences, but we see that too because there's a mutual understanding how we really want to make something happen. And I think that's a great connection that we have when we go on tour and we meet people, and there's such a like a communion, like such a great bond where we're just trying to figure it out together. And I think that's not only what makes this movie special, but what makes my relationship with both Heder and Gries very
it's very well put. And I think that the film is inherently nostalgic in its weird way, and very inclusive. And I think immediately that was just adopted on set. I mean, in fact, when we shot in Idaho, we would be done shooting at like 6 o'clock in the evening every day, but it wouldn't get dark till 10:30 at night in August, And so we would go play basketball, or we would go swimming, or we would, it was like summer camp. It was really like summer camp. It was like, oh yeah, we're going to go shoot these scenes. Oh, that'll be so much fun. And then we're going to meet later and, like bowl or something. We just did all kinds of crazy stuff.
It never really felt like work. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I know because you have told me countless times, but for me, this is not really a job. I wasn't a normal actor. I was a student. I acted in a few other student productions, but coming up when Jared said, dude, are you game for doing a feature of this summer? I'm like, I got nothing else. I got and I didn't even think about pay. It was just like, well, sure, that's an added bonus if I get anything. But really, it was just like, yeah, like I want to go have fun. And that's what it was. We just hung out. We had fun.
Let me see. Hitchhike across the country or do a feature film? Oh, I guess I'll do a feature film.
Yeah. And of course, we had no idea it would ever be in theaters. You're just doing it because you like it. And at the time, I truly thought, I don't know if it's going to be in theaters. It might never get into any festivals or whatever, but as long as they can burn like a DVD copy for me, then I have something to show my friends and family back at home. And
Will, just one last thing, because the question you asked, I didn't think this movie was going to be, you asked, did you know it was going to be? I did not know it was going to be this. When I called those people and said, I actually said, this movie might make like $1 million. I mean, that's like what I said. Like it could have a little bit of a show. I didn't think it was going to become what it became. I'm certainly not that prescient, and I'm not going to try and sell myself as that. I just thought it might get a theatrical release and maybe make a couple of bucks. I had no idea that it was going to do this.
And to me, that's actually something I've always been curious about, is when it started to really, really explode. Was there a moment where you obviously, like John, there was a moment where like no longer it was just burn me a DVD copy and I'll be happy. But when was the moment where you're like, holy cow, I just met Brad Pitt or whatever sort of thing. Like, was there a moment where this went from being like, hey, this is surprisingly successful to, oh, this is this surreal thing that I experienced, to, oh, my life is literally never going to be the same as it was beforehand?
I think you know, when the movie came out in like June of 2004, and it was just in a few theaters, and for the next 5 months, almost up until the end of the year, it just kept getting released a few more times, and so we had a kind of a slow like realization. It was hard to say there's any real strong moment, except I suppose when I was asked to come be a guest on Letterman and the Letterman show, I was like, really? I mean, that's like huge. That's huge. And when Letterman started talking about like how much he loved the movie, which he just rarely ever talks about how he loves something, but he was like, you got to watch it twice. He was selling it. He was just selling it to the audience. And that was one of the first things, because I think I did that show in like August. So it was only had been out for like a month and a half, maybe. And that's really kind of the moment I was like, dude, we've done something.
You know, the iconography of like the dialogue, it's ridiculous. Like it's so strange to be part of a movie where I can be sitting in a random place and people with their backs to me don't know that I'm sitting there, and they'll be sitting there going, gosh, like they'll be sweet. Like they'll be like doing lines from the movie. I mean, I just was watching the Dodger game 2 nights ago, and Oral Hershiser's talking, and sure enough, a guy hits a high fly ball. He goes, oh, he hit that over the mountains, over the San Gabriels. And the other announcer, Joe, whatever his name is, goes, he hit that ball over the mountains. Like, I was like jumping up and down. Going, look at that. It's just right there on the Dodger game.
The mountains.
Crazy.
And for us as actors, I will say, it's like, you know, when you do a job on a project, and then after that happens, you're looking for your next job. You're looking for a next film or TV show that you're going to do. So you know, while we were all doing that, the world was speaking out loud about this film of Napoleon Dynamite and how different and how odd it was. And to be able to see that in magazines and on the internet, and as fast growing as the internet was, to be able to see all those Vote for Pedro t-shirts everywhere, and then you see like a lot of celebrities wearing them, even as we traveled from place to place all over the country and all over the world, people from all over the world started to recognize this film and for what it was and what it was becoming. And it was like, and just like with Jonathan Gries said, where a lot of the lines were being quoted by so many people of all generations, whether they were going, gosh, flipping sweet, or that's what I'm talking about, or yeah, go long, man, go on, or yes, bow your sensei, or as you know, as Pedro,
they keep coming.
Yeah.
Will you vote for me?
Just.
Yes. Is she hot?
It's Sledgehammer.
Every
Get
time
me to go
I
talk to
talk
that girl
about
over
a
there.
girl I met, everybody says to me, is she hot?
And then that's when you go, see for yourself.
I like the bangs. She doesn't have any bangs. I like the bangs.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. You just keep going. Like that's the rest of the show. Okay, so we have some questions. Actually, we encourage everyone to send questions. I think there's a chat thing, but we've got some question things. So the first question comes to us from Dwayne Hamby. Dwayne, hi Dwayne. Dwayne asks, where do you think? I'm sorry, it really hurts. By the way, we're not at a thing where you can actually see them, but yeah, I trust that Dwayne is very.
Dwayne, you look pretty good.
Yeah, he does. He does. Where do you think their characters are now in life? What Uncle Rico, Napoleon, and Pedro, where do you think they are at this particular moment in 2020, other than, you know, indoors?
I think while they're told to stay indoors, and while Napoleon, you know, is very respectful of authority, in his later years, he's come a long way. Mm-hmm. He is trying to figure out, he realizes the end of the world is coming soon. I have got to catch up on my wilderness survival skills. So he is trying to live the alone lifestyle out in the woods. He's got enough, materials to last him a week, but he's probably only lasting a day and a half because he can't get that flipping fire started. He's like, it's not working that way. I learned in scout camp. This is so stupid. I don't know.
Yes, I no argument here.
Rico is on the road with grandma. They're in the van. They're living on the road, trying to stay away from everybody during the time of the pandemic, and also working, getting hired, doing little jobs like security at gravel plants and stuff like that.
And you're pissed because you always saw yourself as the driver, but grandma's like, no, I'll drive you everywhere. And Rico gets stuck doing all the manual labor.
Exactly.
He's stamping boxes.
And you're like, just be careful. Just be careful.
All she's doing is making the dang quesadilla every night.
I forget, what's grandma's first name? What's her name in it? Did we ever hear her name?
Never had a name.
We never, I thought.
What would be a fitting name for grandma?
Gladys.
Grandma. G squared.
Yeah,
Karen. She's a Karen.
She's a Karen.
Pedro would he would be married to Summer. They would have about like 4 or 5 kids, and they would have their house, and they would have their company right next to their house, like a bakery. And because of what we're going through, right, he would have like an online serving.
Would it be a panaceria?
Yeah, panaceria, and they'd be building cakes for everybody, and then behind that they would have an area where they know how to make piñatas for people. So for families, they would have like a drive-through, so people could pick up either the piñatas or their cakes, and they would make sure that everyone would have their wildest dreams come true.
Would the piñatas look like the COVID ball that they keep showing every day on the news?
COVID ball.
Exactly. Something.
And then I think Napoleon is, trying to be proactive, and he's needling. He's always done it over the last years, but now even more so than ever, he's needling Pedro. He's like, dude, I think the time has come. You need to run for president.
Yeah,
whatever works.
Whatever works.
Whatever works, exactly.
Because the rule is that Pedro, along with Summer, they're both going to be leading with peace, love, unity, and respect.
And understanding.
Ahí está. There it is.
Napoleon just really wants to be part of the Secret Service, and he really wants to get to hold a real 12 gauge. That's why he's just like, come on, you got to run. You got to run for president. I'm sick of these nunchucks and all these non-firing weapons. I need something real.
He wants to run next to the limousine with his hand on the back of it.
He's like, I've got the stamina of a liger. I can keep up for miles and miles.
And we do want to say that for Kip would be married with LaFonda, and he'd be all big and buff, and he'd be like a cage fighter, and he'd be handling it. So.
Well, he'd still be the same height, but he's like Peter Parker. He takes off his shirt and he's just ripped.
Like that little kid that you see from India, who's got more muscles than he's only about 7 years old. Rico had to put his backyard wrestling business on hold during the pandemic, but he was hiring high school students to jump off of roofs and land on each other and film it and put it on YouTube. He was trying to monetize a whole new backyard wrestling business.
Okay, next question. Go.
I hope it answered the question.
We keep going. We can keep going. You never stop.
This comes from Hillary Pope. Hillary asks, does any scene stand out as your absolute favorite or a specifically fun day from when you were filming?
I love the Rex Kwon Do scene has always been my favorite. It's just, they were all fun days to shoot, but that one just always got the most laughs out of me, watching Rex beat up poor little Aaron Rule, who plays Kip, and just like, oh geez, that really does hurt. I'm like,
but it really did get beat up. I mean,
he was like, I need some Advil.
It's just hitting me so hard.
I gotta say one of the interesting scenes is the time machine scene. You know, because then you see Uncle Rico and you see Kip and you see Napoleon, and they're really trying to hope that this time machine could work. And even as they turn it on, you can see Kip's point of view, like some mad scientist really wanting to make it work. And Napoleon's like, whatever, but I'm still gonna see if it works. And then at the end, you see Uncle Rico coming out like, "Yo, I could have told you that." So
I also do like the steak scene, only because we know something about the steak scene, and that is Efren cleared the frame as quickly as he possibly could because he was about to crack. He was about to lose it. So he was like, I gotta go. And he flipped out, left.
Well, yeah. It's because we're shooting it. It's an independent film. So there's no stunts whatsoever. And as we were shooting it, right, we try to get this shot right. And I remember when Jonathan Gries was chucking the steak, but he was missing them, or he was like over his head, or
I was trying to throw it lightly. I was trying to lead him. And I was actually throwing the steak. It's my best acting ever, was off camera. And I was trying to hit him with the steak. And then finally, Jared Hess was like, let's just move the camera closer to his face and we'll just hit him with the steak. And I was like, if you do that, kill the joke. I can hit him. I can really hit him with the steak. I promise you, but I got to chuck that steak. And John Heder was like, so go ahead, chuck it. And I just looked over and I said, I'm going to need a bigger piece of meat. Give me a bigger piece of meat.
Yeah. So when they say action, my heart was beating really fast, and I thought, wait, is this really, this is happening? And John Heder was just riding the bike, he was like, let's go, and we're going. And when I was behind, I heard the smack, and his glasses went whoosh. I thought, like, holy.
They didn't have to augment the sound on that. That was the sound. The hit was the sound.
Yeah. I think what's incredible, I never really thought about it until now, but like you say, it kills the joke. You know, people love that scene when he gets hit. And, you know, I always thought it was really because it's just funny he's getting hit with meat. But I think it's a mix of laughter and a mix of impressed glory. Like, wow, I can't believe he was hit by that piece of meat from so far away. Like, that is really, it's almost like without them knowing, this just this nice long arc coming from so far off screen, just nailing him in the face. Is like, that, how do you pull that off? They probably thought it was like some like t-shirt gun that you rigged for meat.
Yeah, right.
It was your cannon, man. That cannon.
Look, I can't throw soft. I can only throw hard.
John Gries, didn't you just hang out with the Jacksonville quarterback about this with Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, my man. He's good. He's for real.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
People send me pictures all the time with me and Gardner Minshew, and all I write on it is the real deal, and I point the arrow to him.
Okay, we have another question from, let's see, this one's from Tom Wright. Tom asks, Napoleon wore so many retro-looking t-shirts throughout the film. Where did they come from? Were they custom made, or were they acquired through various means? I'm not sure what various means is, but where did those come from?
Dark alleys and such. No, I think most of them came from just thrift stores. Thrift store, like Jared, Jerusha Hess, who is Jared's wife, who co-wrote the film. She was also kind of in charge of the wardrobe. So she just scoured tons and tons of thrift shops and came up with, because that's really when Jared and I kind of created the character. Jared had created him and wrote him out, but then he really started to come to life when him and I first went to some thrift stores to figure out what kind of clothes this character would wear. Because that's where we were like, dude, so much is about the details and stuff and the subtlety of that. So I think it was all, the vote, obviously we made the vote for Pedro, sure, but everything was straight off the rack.
Whatever happened to those sweet pants?
The pants were real, except for they added the top pocket. I have those. Those are.
Didn't a lot of it come from the local thrift shop that we?
I think it was even just the local. They may have gotten it from the thrift shop that we shot in.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of Uncle Rico's clothing came right from that place. Like they found that stuff. Crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, they just went all over pretty much like southern Idaho, northern Utah, and just found all everybody's stuff.
All that sweet stuff.
They didn't make a lot. I think Jerusha, herself made Deb's sleeves, so that they're super awesome and puffy and big. I think that was, she made that, and there's a couple other little things that people made, but for the main part, it was all just found off the rack.
Little keychains.
Okay, this comes from Josh Groob or Grooby. There's a deleted.
Josh Grobin. He's a big fan.
Oh yeah, Josh Grobin. You're right. I can tell because this question is sung beautifully.
Wow.
There is a deleted kickball scene that is absolutely hilarious. Do you know why it didn't make the cut? How did you feel about being omitted? I will admit I've not seen this scene. Can you enlighten me as to what Josh Grobin is talking about?
Yeah, there's a scene in like leading up to the third act where they're playing kickball. It's like a school, it's like a PE class. So Napoleon and Don, the bully, is there along with Summer and Pedro. And it's just kind of it's a scene. I know why they cut it. It is funny. It's weird because kickball is played like baseball, but normally you have like a dodgeball sized ball like that big. But I don't know why, for whatever reason, they got a ball like this big. It was giant. And so it was really weird, number one. And I don't know if I still to this day don't know if it was on purpose or if that's the only ball they could find. But it also kind of like, Don and Napoleon have a whole exchange where Napoleon ends up slapping Don and running off, kind of pulling what he did on Kip when he was like, "Oh, go get it," smack, and then runs. And I think they were just worried it made Napoleon look a little too jerky. It made you kind of like him less. So,
and I from the time that I was in the editing room, I do remember that when that scene was in the movie, as funny as that scene is standalone, it actually slowed the pace of the film. It just slowed it down a little. It was kind of, I guess, redundant, like you're saying. It's like you'd already been that down that road as that character thing or whatever. I feel like that's why they probably.
But there's some great lines, I think.
Oh, it's amazing.
When Don goes like, "Hey Napoleon, did you wet the bed last night?" I'm like, "Hey Don, did you take a dump in your bed last night?" Something like that. And so stupid. "What'd you say about my mom?" He's like, "Whatever the heck you." I can't remember half the lines. We'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Who's the only one here who knows illegal ninja moves from the government? There we go.
I don't want to know. Chris E asked, was Napoleon's house one of your actual houses? I assume all of you have multiple houses. That's probably where this is coming from. Was Napoleon's house one of your actual houses, or was it just a rented house used as a set?
I don't think it was rented. They probably paid the owners. But
I think
Napoleon's.
No, they donated.
You think they donated? They may have. I mean, they didn't have a big budget.
Everything in this, the only way they could make this movie, like most of the crew worked for nothing. Everybody just pitched in.
Yeah.
But gave up their homes. I mean, most of the crew stayed at people's homes. There was no
there was probably some of the crew staying in Napoleon's home. Napoleon's home was made up of two houses, the exterior and the interior, right. And they were two separate houses. But I think they were all just friends. I think the exterior of the house was someone they knew, and they were able to and that was like a favor. I think the interior was some old, some lady who had just passed away, remember? And so my guess is they somehow got a.
She died Christmas Eve in 1974, and the house was left. The Christmas ornaments were still up.
Yeah. So they must have rented it or something.
It was kind of spooky.
Apparently, the story I heard was that her brother kept the house the way it was, and just cleaned it. He cleaned it, and nobody stayed there. So that's why they gave the house.
That's why it smelled that way.
And that's why all the furniture and the wallpaper and the carpets and everything was right out of the mid-70s. It was. Yeah. It wasn't of this time. It was a time capsule, that house.
Yeah, it was. So much of that movie.
Now that they built a hotel on it, just right around it.
Oh, that's great. Okay, she already asked a question, but I like another question she has. This is Hillary Pope again. Did any of you keep any particularly iconic items from the movie in your house? Do you have a prop? Do you have something that you held forever from it, or did John take all of them?
Which John? John Gries?
You,
me. I only took
Nothing.
no, I took some of his clothes, which I just have crumpled up in a costume box somewhere. Like iconic, yeah, a couple of his t-shirts I have, which you'd recognize them all. The endurance horse t-shirt and that helicopter one, which is rad. I have the hammer pants with the top pocket. As far as props, I wish I could have had more. I don't have the original drawings. Someone else has the drawings that I made. But I have a couple of the posters from Napoleon's room.
What about Pegasus Crossing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that counts. It's like I have the Pegasus Crossing sign that was on his room as well. Just some wall decorations I grabbed.
I did want to keep the FFA Future Farmers of America jacket because there's a blue corduroy and it was pretty sweet.
Oh,
they're rad. Really sweet. Those jackets are really sweet.
Yeah, but like Pedro's very honest and I walked away with memories. So, but now I have some. I mean, I have the original Napoleon Dynamite poster and some of the original T-shirts in promoting the film
that we made.
Yeah, that I get to one day, when I have kids, just give it to them and going, yep, here you go. So that's kind of cool.
You got
okay.
Kids.
We have one from G. Wiley. G. Wiley asks, obviously the movie is scripted, but were any of the characters in the film based on people or certain mannerisms that you took from other people? Because G. Wiley says he feels like he knows many people knew a Napoleon growing up. If we could all be so fortunate. I suppose when you guys focus on the characters, was there someone that you knew that like you were conjuring up, or were you just trying to best interpret what Jared Hess was trying to do?
For me, there was a lot of my younger brothers, and kind of harkening back to like how I was in middle school and high school, but I got a lot of some of the mannerisms from how my younger brothers were growing up, and just I have two younger brothers, and no matter what you did, if you did something nice for them, if you did something mean, it doesn't matter. They're always just like, thanks for nothing, you turd. Or like, just like, oh, this chili is so good. It's like, wait, it's delicious. Yes. It's the best chili I've ever had. Just, I mean, that's really kind of like everything was just like, oh.
I
don't know.
Pedro, but well, I have to say, the director and Jerusha, his wife, were very specific with the characters that they had created. So they had a very strong vision on who each character was in the film. But our job as actors is to be able to find that and find our own sort of interpretation into that. I mean, I'm a big fan of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. So I wanted to be able to put that, and then for those of you who have seen Peluca, the short film, there's two characters. It was Pedro, and what's the name of the other guy, John?
Gail.
And so I remember Jared having to tell me, he goes, watch this short film, put these two characters together and make them into one. I'm thinking like, oh man. And I wasn't so sure what to work, because I just graduated from a school of acting. And I remember having to speak with John Gries and ask him, go, here's my work. Can you take a look at it? And just to have that confidence, and, it's the support of the director, the support of the other actors, and to be able to trust that the work that we were doing was right, and to see what happens. And I got to say, like, even my first day when I went to base camp to meet John Heder, he was dressed up as Napoleon, and he was like, "Hey, are you Pedro?" And I'm thinking, "Wow, okay, this movie might become something." So we'll see.
I think Efren's absolutely right about Jared being so specific. In fact, the one amazing thing about Jared Hess is that he could imitate each character like perfectly. Like he could just he could probably get a job doing stand-up and being all the characters, but he just has a knack for making voices and creating, you know, he's just incredible that way. And when I got the job, you know, I met with him afterwards, after they made the offer and I accepted the offer, and he had come to town for a day, and they called me like, could you come meet Jared real quick? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I went, and he was so sweet and so genuine and very quiet. And he was like, you know, let's not forget, I mean, he turned 23 while we were making this movie. So he was quite young and just brilliant. And he said, can I talk to you about the character? And I was like, of course, let's do it. So we walked outside of this apartment somewhere in Hollywood. And he goes, well, Uncle Rico, well, he runs like this. And he just kind of ran down the block. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Nobody's ever done that before. And he came walking back, and I was like, I'm blown away. And he goes, well, it's like, if I were to say Uncle Rico, he's just like a combination of David Hasselhoff meets Elvis meets Burt Reynolds. And I was like, say no more. And that was kind of it.
I'm glad a person that combines all of that exists at all in the universe.
That's really it's quite it's an interesting color, isn't it?
It could have been a real mess, but he turned out okay.
It's like it
was the wig that brought it together.
We just kept them all three personalities fused into one.
Imagine if Uncle Rico was like a combination of Charles Manson and Charlie Brown.
Oh, that's disturbing.
I don't know. I'd have to work on that for a while.
Yeah.
Guys, you want to come over? I'm just gonna eat you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yes, of course. I'll be right over. All right. Well, they tell me that we have hit the end here, or that we have like
we don't have one rapid fire question left.
One rapid fire question I have actually for each of you. One fire I want to answer for
green screen.
Oh, okay, great, awesome. It's like
not how they work, Efren.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not how they work. They're not
like
for warming
Sorry,
yourself.
Am I wrong in this? Am I totally wrong? Am I off?
Doesn't work for you. It's not the right color for you.
Extremely wrong.
You don't see me?
Nah.
No, we don't see you. It's working well.
Not even if you were a Teletubby. No.
There is no possible rapid fire question I could give after.
Come on, somebody else. Did anybody throw in a question? Let's throw one of the people's question. You know,
one of the people's questions. Last question. We gotta close. But last question is we'll end the May the Movie ends with the dance. They want to know what your thought was the first time that you saw the dance, John. The first time you came up with the dance, what it felt in the experience to see that for the first time, to realize that was what was happening.
Oh, it's a little awkward watching. Like most actors, you know, you're kind of watching your own work. Normally I could step out. Napoleon wasn't too hard because he was so different than myself, even though there's a lot of similarities. But yeah, the dance scene was just kind of an edited together scene of 3 different dances I did. And so I was just like, oh yeah, cool. I remember doing that move. Yeah. Oh, they kept that one. Oh, I wish they had kept this one. No, it was just, I mean, you know, watching your own thing, you're like, well, it was more watching how people were reacting, and people really loved it and they seemed like really into it. I was like, well, it's not like, I was like, I get it. It's funny because it's kind of crusty. I'm not the best dancer. I'm like, this is nowhere near as good as, you know, like professional dancers, but I get it. I had to do it with a straight face, and that was kind of hard.
But it's the beautiful tied bow around that movie.
Yeah.
It ends up being like the little beautiful bow. That's the way I look at it.
I appreciate that.
The big secret was the moon boots.
Oh, yeah. Dancing in moon boots and a perm with like a face of just concentrated frustration. Oh, yes.
And fluid, a lot of fluid in them boots.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sloshing and slushing.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for everyone that came to be a part of it. Please, everyone, stay safe. Be careful out there. And thank you, Efren. Thank you, both Johns. That was a wonderful time. Thank you, audience, for coming.
John,
you guys.
Talk to everyone.
Will, thanks. Will, thanks so much. It was great.
Please be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Once came across a blind dinosaur. We foresaw what went and came before us. Do you even think he saw us? But like Taurus, I'm relentlessly pacing, chasing a deeper view. Socially conditioned, positioned without a right to choose. Right to choose. If I